welcome back. So in our last video, we learned how to create codes and assign it to text. And now, depending on the content of your work, depending on the length of your work, you might want to create more codes, okay, before you can now take this step. But I like to do this, which is coding, adding my coding strips and highlights, just so that I can know the areas of my text that has been coded. Now, your coding strips shows you the nodes that have been coded to your text. Okay, so for instance, if I want to apply the coding strips, what I will do is to click on a blank space in my document. So once I do that, a document tab will appear here on my ribbon view. Then I will come here and I will say click on coding strips and all coding. Now, if you see by the right side of my screen here on my detail view, you'll see that the codes that I have created and assigned to text are applying here. And you can also see skillful, prayerful, knowledgeable, basically all the codes we've created in the last video. Okay, if I also want to add the highlights, which is to highlight the text that has been coded, I will come back to my document tab, click on highlights, and then say all coding. So this shows me the text that has been coded, the area of my text that has been coded. Okay, it highlights the parts that has been coded, and those areas that hasn't been coded yet will not be highlighted. So this is how you apply your coding strips and your highlights. Now we're going to be generating more codes now that we understand the use of coding strips and highlights. So let's create more codes so we can start building content for our codebook. So the next code we are going to create is what makes the response here. Response 3 says, what makes this place different from hospital is that they intercede with prayers or herbs compared with the hospital where they only give drugs and injection. So we are still going to code these as what? Prayerful, but we are also going to be creating a new code, and this time around we are going to be calling it use of herbs, okay, or rather use of alternative medicine. So I click on views of the pregnant woman, right click on it, click on new notes, and I'm just going to say use of alternative medicine. Now for this particular code, I'm going to be putting a description. So I'm going to say this refers to the pregnant women enjoying or preferring the use of TBA services or rather preferring the TBA services, preferring the TBAs due to their use of herbs. And then I say okay. So now we have another code. So this respondent tree, we're going to code this statement as prayerful and use of alternative medicine. So I'm just going to highlight it and I drag it to the code. The next one I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight okay, so I'm going to highlight the entire statement and say use of alternative medicine. Sometimes you may just want to code the exact words. Let's say for some people they can decide to code just herbs, okay, herbs compared with the hospital, but I like to code the entire statement because I would want a situation whereby if someone is looking at my coding references, he or she is able to understand where this code, how this statement was coded, and what kind of statement was assigned, or what kind of text was assigned to a particular code. So basically I like to do it in this manner, but some people can choose to just code herbs compared with the hospital. It depends on how you want it. Okay, so this is how you assign a code. Let's create more codes. So now we're done with the first question. We'll move to the second question and try to create codes. So the question here says, do you think TBAs should receive formal training? Why? Okay, so we are going to create a code here. Let's use our command Ctrl+Shift+N to create a free code, and we're just going to say formal training. Formal training for TBAs. So formal training for TBAs. Okay. Now looking at the nature of this particular question, you'll see that it's in a way quantitative. It makes you want to answer it in, is it yes or no? Do you think TBAs should receive formal training? Yes, I think they should. No, and give your reason why. So I'm going to create two codes under it, the subcodes. So this time around I'll click on formal training for TBAs, right click on it, then say new node, and I'm just going to create yes as my first code. I'll do the same thing again, Ctrl+Shift+N, no, and then I say okay. Okay, so now I have two codes. So in a case where someone says the statements, or because remember, qualitative, when you're analyzing qualitative data, it's the bulk of the work is more on you, because you have to start pulling your insights. You have to start trying to say, okay, does this statement suggest a yes? Does it suggest a no response? In that kind of manner. So I'm just going to say, okay, reading this first one, they said training is very good for TBAs because most of them who aren't trained implicates the TBAs that are trained. The trained TBAs are more knowledgeable than the untrained ones. All right. So I think this is a yes. Okay, this response falls under yes, they should be trained. So because this particular statement has more details that I want to pull out of it, I'm just going to come and click on my yes, right click on it, then say new node, and I will create my first node as increased knowledge. Okay. Let's give it a description. It's pregnant women believe that training of the TBAs will enable them to have increased knowledge on ways of providing care. Okay, let's just say of providing care to the pregnant women. Once I've done that, I'll say okay. So now you see I have a code under a subcode, all right, and it's called increased knowledge. You can also do that if I have a code that I need to put under no. I'm going to click on no and then create the code under it. But because this particular statement says increased knowledge, I'm going to code it as increased knowledge. Okay. So just going to highlight it and say increase knowledge. The reason why the TBAs need to be trained is because training helps them to increase knowledge. Now these answers, these codes I'm creating may not necessarily speak to you per se, so it's important for you whenever you're working on any analysis, whenever you're working on any research, it's important for you to work with your team. It's important for you to sit together and agree. Try to have like uniform codes at the beginning of your analysis. It helps you so you don't start, because what I think is increased knowledge might come off as more skillful to another person, or just basically because everyone reasons differently. Okay, so we can read different meanings to a particular text that we are viewing. So basically this is how you create your codes. You can keep creating more codes. If I want to go to another document to perform basically what we've done already, I will just go back to my navigation view, click on my files, and then click on the next document. Once I do that, I open another file and I start coding the same process, the way we did it at the beginning, just following it through in the same manner. So I want to start coding again. I want to start coding another file. Okay, and I will go to my navigation view and click on my notes, so it can appear under the list, so I can see the codes that I have. So views of the pregnant women on TBAs. The first respondent says, I like them in this place because they give us good care and pray for us all the time. So I see prayerful, and I want to still call it skillful. Okay, so I'm going to highlight here. I like them in this place. They gave us good care. So I will highlight it, drag and drop. Okay. Now, if you notice, I made an error. So if you want to do that, you just need to undo what you have done. You simply say Ctrl Z, and you see it has taken it off. Okay, so I wanted to code that under skillful, rather. So I'm just going to say skillful, and pray for us all the time. They gave us good care and pray for us all the time. So from here, I will drag and code it under prayerful. Okay. Now, if you notice, we opened a new file and the coding highlights and the coding strips are no more appearing. That's because for every time you come into a new document, you have to go back and click on your coding strips. That's if you want. Okay, and then you say all coding. So it appears that if you want to be seeing your coding strips while you're coding, and you can also come and click on your highlights and say all coding. I like to do this so I can see the text that has been coded. Okay, so let's code more responses under this particular one. Me, I like this space, so I am not sure I can go and have my baby elsewhere. Okay, they are friendly, prayerful, and they know what they are doing. They treat you like a human being. Okay, they are friendly, prayerful, and they know what they are doing. So I'm trying not to create too many codes for a particular statement. So I'm just going to be thinking in my head, does it speak to prayerful? Does it speak to skillful? Do I need to create more codes? And in this particular statement, I feel the codes that apply here is empathy. They treat you like a human being. That's empathy. So I'm just going to click on views, right click, and I'll say Ctrl+Shift+N, and I say empathy. Okay, once you've done that, just click on OK. So now I have a new code called empathy. So I'm going to drag they treat you like a human being and drop it under empathy. Okay, so let me code the rest. I'm just going to code everything as prayerful and everything as knowledgeable. Let's code it knowledgeable. because that you see at the end of the statement, it says, and they know what they are doing. Okay, so I've coded it as knowledgeable. I have delivered in this hospital. The next response says, I have delivered in the hospital before and the baby died before someone asked me to come here for prayers. I discovered that they know how to handle pregnant women even if you have problems. This is mine. This is the second pregnancy I am bringing here. So we have prayerful and also knowledgeable. Okay, so the first part, we'll just quickly code that as prayerful, and the next part we are going to code it as knowledgeable. So the prayer water and oil they give us here is more effective than the drip in the hospital. Interesting. So this is, should we call it use of alternative medicine? Yes. So the prayer water and oil, let's call it use of alternative medicine. So there you have it. This is how you create codes. This is how you assign your codes to text. When you are working with several files, you just keep opening them up and you keep creating creating your codes and assigning it to the text. Most times you might have to do this over a large range of documents. Okay, sometimes it may just be one transcript. In our next video, we're going to be looking at ways of creating a code book. Basically, what does a code book look like? So with these few codes that we've generated, we're just going to look at how to create a code book. Thank you very much. See you in the next video.